Hello and welcome to Matrix Live. Today my guest is Richard van der Hoff, a member of the Spec core team with a focus on servers and cryptography. He is also part of the core team working on Synapse and is here with us today to talk about one of the major pain points of Matrix and how it's about to be solved. We're going to talk about the spinners you have probably seen many times and the time it takes to join a room. Richard, good morning. Did I introduce yourself correctly?
Hi, Tib. Yeah, that sounds about right. I've been involved with Matrix for quite a long time, so I'm not. Yeah, but my first time on Matrix Live, I've obviously been keeping myself under the radar somehow.
Well, welcome to Matrix Live. Let's dive in directly and explore the room join issues. So you have been working on speeding up the room joins. We sometimes hear about remote room joins and local room joins. Let's try to understand what we're talking about. Let's assume I have just set up my home server running on example.com, on which me and my friend Alex have created an account. What happens when I create a new room?
Right. So, as you probably know, rooms are made up of a series of events in that room. So, normally we think about events being the messages that you're sending in the room, but there are also some special events. So, when you first create a room, basically, what all that happens is we send a few special events, and so there's a create event which basically says, "Hey, this is a new room. We've got some permissions being set there," and we've got a membership event that says, "Hey, I'm a member of that room." And that's really all that creating a room is. It's just sending those few special events to start off the room. Um,
All right, so it's basically creating a room with a few events with which are JSON objects to describe what is happening, and that's it. Nothing else is happening. But what happens if Alex, who has an account on the same home server as me, had created a new room, posted a few things inside, and then they invite me?
right. So there's a couple of things going on there. So the process of invitation is really, again, sending an event into the room. It's a type of membership event. We say, hey, Tib is now invited to this room. But the really interesting thing is not so much actually the invitation as what then happens when you choose to join a room. So when the invitation event gets sent, you'll get a little pop-up saying, hey, there's an invitation for you, and then you can choose to join it. And that's, for our purposes today, the more interesting part because the work gets done in joining. Now, because you and your friend Alex are on the same server, when you join that room, all that needs to happen is for your join event to be added to the room, and then you will be a full member of the room. So that was the question.
It does. It does definitely. We're taking baby steps to get more and more to more and more complicated situations. So, what if now my friend Alex had created a room, but invited people from other home servers first before inviting me?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so uh, so if there are other people on other home servers who've joined the room, then actually, when you come to join the room, that's again, it's no different. It's just because you and Alex are sharing a room or sharing a home server, again, just sending your join is just a local operation. So it's no real difference whether there are users on other home servers in that room before or not. The key is that there's another user on the same home server as you. So that's still a local join.
All right. So, from the perspective of my home server, it's no different than if everybody was on my home server. Well, it is if we want to get into details, but from the joint perspective, it makes no real difference.
That's right.
Now, let's complicate things a little and assume my friend Felix, who has an account on matrix.org, had created a room, so on matrix.org, invited a few other people, but nobody from my home server, and they sent a few messages, and now Felix invites me. Can you describe what is happening on my server?
Right, sure. So now, first of all, Felix is sending the invite, and so the invite event is being added on matrix.org in this case, and matrix.org will send a message to your home server to say, hey, you've been invited. But again, the interesting part isn't so much the invite, which is really lightweight, it's actually when you come to join the room. And this is a whole lot more complicated because now your home server, which doesn't know anything about this room other than the fact you've been invited to it, has to properly join the room. And when that happens, your home server needs to know a whole lot about the state of that room. And we're talking about the list of members in there. That's the main thing, but also like the topic and the name of the room, if that's been set specifically, and any permissions that have been set in the room. So, and that can be quite a lot of information in a large room. So now we're getting to understand why we have this problem with joins, which is if your friend Felix has made a large room, or if that room is large, and imagine big rooms like Matrix HQ that have hundreds of thousands of users, then that can be a huge amount of data that your server has to load before you can start interacting with that room.
And what makes a large room? Is it just the amount of traffic, the number of messages, or is it something related to the state of the room itself, like many people joining, leaving, etc.?
Right. For our purposes, it's primarily the number of users in that room. But for complicated reasons we don't need to go into right now, it's also about the number of users who have ever been in that room, and so might have been in and left a while ago. That all gets transferred, and also some amount of history for those membership events. So if a user's been joining and leaving and joining and leaving, all of that stuff gets transferred over. So so it's mostly about the number of members in the room, but there's also some aspect that controls how long that room's been around, how many users have been and gone in that time.
All right. So when I get that invite, my home server needs to get a local copy of the remote room on the room that is on matrix.org. And I heard about a thing called state resolution. Does it has anything to do with what we're talking about?
Not really, is the answer. No, it doesn't really happen at the point of the join. So state resolution is about when you get different things going on at the same time in the room, and your home server needs to figure out, well, what should the end state of this room be? When you're talking about a join, well, that's pretty much a single point in history in that room we care about, and so state resolution isn't that much of a factor in this
All right.
process.
But my home server still needs to get the whole history of the room to be able to do some integrity checks.
Right, not the whole history, all the history of the users joining and leaving. So that's quite an important distinction. So we're not transferring any of the messages that those users were sent, but what we are transferring is the history of users joining and leaving the room. So that can still be a lot, though it's a lot less than the whole history. And yes, by way of checking that the membership events are valid, we need to have the whole history of those membership events.
All right. So to summarize a little, a local join is when I'm creating or joining a room that another user on my home server is a member of. And a remote join is when my server needs to get a local copy of a room that exists on other home servers to do some sort of integrity checks, so check the membership events, and allow me to join the conversation. Did I get this right?
That's exactly right, yes. It's all about whether there's another user in that room already on your home server, and so whether your home server needs to pull down all that data.
So that means the people who are the most likely to experience those spinners when joining large rooms are not necessarily people on matrix.org, because this is a very popular server where there are good chances for people to have to be in that room, for other users to be in the room you are trying to join. So matrix.org already has a local copy. But if I self-host my home server and I only have a handful of users on it, I'm most likely to experience these longer room joins.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's super frustrating to us, because it means that anyone who sets up their home server and they set it all up, and that's a bunch of work they put in, and then the first thing they do is try to join Matrix HQ, and all they see is a spinner and an error, and it's a horrible experience. And I think, what is this Matrix thing? And they walk away back to Discord or whatever.
Right. This is working a little against the decentralization objective we have. Now
Exactly.
we're more comfortable with local and remote joins. Does your work improve local joins, remote joins, or both?
Right. So the work that I and the backend team have been doing over the last few months has been entirely focusing on remote room joins. We've been doing Local room joins can be sped up as well, and we've been doing a little bit of work on that, but really the project I'm talking about today is all about remote room joins, and it's about making that process of synchronizing the room between servers much faster.
Okay, and what did you do to make it happen, to make the remote joins faster?
Okay, so the key insight here is that although we still need all those membership events in the room eventually, we don't need them to get you started with the room. So what we can do is when you try and join that room on a remote home server, we we pull in some basic information about the room. And so we pull in things like the topic and the name and the permissions in the room. But that's all we need to get going. And you can start receiving messages and sending messages at that point. Um, and then we can pull in the full membership list in the background while you're interacting with the room. And so eventually we get into a state where where your server is properly joined into the room. But that, and hopefully will happen mostly in the background without you worrying about it too much.
Okay, so in the case of very large matrix rooms, such as Matrix HQ, that means I can start interacting with the room directly when I join, but I might not have a very accurate idea of who is in the room when I'm starting interactions.
That's right. So you don't have you don't get the membership list initially. Um, as things currently stand, we can't pull in the history of the room, so you'll only be seeing new messages that are arriving in the room. That might be a thing we can improve in the future. So it's certainly a limited interaction, but it's a much better interaction than the current thing, which is a spinner and an error.
Yes, it's not great at all to be completely blocked and to have your home server say, "Oh no, I ran out of memory or something because I can't join that super large room." Yeah, so a huge improvement already. But is it an improvement on Synapse only, or does it have an impact on the Matrix protocol itself?
Right. So the changes we are making can be applied in any home server. At the moment, we've only done the work in Synapse. But yeah, there's no reason the same work couldn't be done in other home servers too. So it's quite a bit of work, it turns out.
I can imagine. I heard a few months ago, I think, something called lazy loading of a federation. Is it what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's very much a different name for the same thing. It's this idea that you can join the room and then lazily pull in the membership events while you're sort of interacting with the room.
Okay, very cool. So that's quite an exciting change, and it's going to improve the user experience a lot.
Yeah.
Is it available today? Can I enable that on my home server?
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, first of all, we recommend for Synapse 1.69 to be out, and that's due out on Tuesday because we've fixed a few bugs in this release, which you will want to wait for. But yes, once you've got that, you can enable it on your home server. You have to set an experimental flag, or be publishing a blog post about how to do that. And yeah, then you can try it out and let us know how you get on. And we're super excited to get feedback on it and see how it works with people. It's been a big complicated project, and so yeah.
I can imagine, but can I obliterate my server by enabling that? What do I risk?
Right. So good question, because there's been a big change to a lot of the way Synapse works. We are confident it will not obliterate your server. What we think is quite possible is that you might get a stuck room, so you sort of get stuck in a half joined state in a room, or you might end up with a client that sort of gets stuck at a spinner and you have to clear the cache on it, and those sorts of bugs, probably only affecting the rooms that you're trying to join. So at this point, we'd say you probably only want to try this if you're moderately confident with a little bit of Synapse admin, and wouldn't necessarily recommend trying it on your important home server that your business is relying on. But that said, yeah, it's not going to obliterate your whole database, so give it a go if you feel a little bit adventurous.
And can I try that with every single client, or are there some client-side changes required?
Okay, we haven't made any client-side changes, but it will only work with clients that support what we call lazy loading members, which is the idea that they can cope with, again, pulling the membership list in the background rather than expecting it to come down, can be pushed by the server. Now, you're going to ask which clients support that, and I don't know off the top of my head. Certainly all the Element clients do. Beyond that, you need to check. Sorry.
All right. So pulling only the information you need or pulling the extra information in the background, that sounds very much like sliding sync, that project we keep hearing about to make Matrix fast. Is it related to it or does it conflict with it?
No, it doesn't conflict with it. It's an orthogonal system, really. So the tool will work happily together, but they're really seeking to optimize different parts of the protocol.
Okay, and is there anything else than a sliding think and faster room joins that could be coming in terms of performance improvement for the Matrix servers?
Yeah, good question. I mean, let me think. There's nothing major on the horizon. Obviously, we spend a lot of time trying to optimize Synapse in a small way, and so each release contains some small optimizations. We spoke earlier on about local room joins, and that's been a smaller focus for us. We think there's room to optimize that process as well. So let's just be a bit faster than it is today. So that's coming up. In the slightly longer term, we want to make scroll back work a bit faster. So when you're going back to the history of a room, we've got some ideas for how we can make that process go a bit faster and be a bit snappier. Yeah, so I think those are the main things. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Is there anything we forgot to mention?
No, I don't think so. I just want to say, please try it out. Let us know how you get on. File bugs on Synapse or give us a ping in the Synapse admin room to let us know if you have any problems. And we're super excited to hear how people get on with it.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Richard. I hope everybody is as excited to test it as I am, but please remember that it is still experimental at the moment and you shouldn't enable that on important production servers yet. Have fun, and I'll see you around Matrix Live.
Bye.